All right, let's get right into it. Do you ever feel like you're just constantly running on a treadmill? Putting in more and more hours, but the results just don't seem to match the effort? If that sounds familiar, then this is for you. We're about to break down a framework that's all about multiplying your output, not your time at the desk.
I know. That sounds completely backward, right? Our entire lives were basically taught that grinding it out, that pure hustle, is the only way to get ahead. But this one question, it challenges that entire way of thinking. It makes you wonder, is there a smarter way to do this? A different way to win?
And this leads us straight to the heart of the problem, what I like to call the hustle culture lie. It's this idea that's everywhere now, this belief that just being busy is the same as being productive. And honestly, it's the reason so many of us feel totally burnt out and stuck on that treadmill, which just seems to get faster and faster every year.
This right here really boils the whole thing down. The myth, the old way of thinking, was that more effort equals more reward. Simple. But the reality, especially in the world we live in today, is that the market rewards output. It doesn't care if it took you 10 hours or 10 minutes. The only thing that matters is what you actually produced.
So if not all effort is created equal, then the big question is, how do we find the work that really matters? Well, the answer comes from this amazing concept that's kind of been hiding in plain sight all along. It's the 80-20 power principle, sometimes called the Pareto principle. And this is the real secret to getting those huge, disproportionate results.
The idea is actually super simple. For pretty much anything, roughly 80% of the results you get come from just 20% of your actions. And once you see it, you start seeing it everywhere. In a business, 80% of the sales come from 20% of the customers. With software, 20% of the bugs cause 80% of the crashes. I mean, think about your own closet. You probably wear 20% of your clothes 80% of the time, right? The point is, a very small number of things you do are creating almost all of your progress.
So here's the absolute key. We have to stop trying to just do more. The real goal is figure out what that critical 20% is and then focus all our energy there. That idea right there is the foundation for this entire leverage framework. It's a huge shift from worrying about the quantity of your work to focusing on the quality of your focus.
And here's our roadmap for making it happen. It's a framework built on 3 really simple but powerful pillars. First, we've got to identify our levers. That's the 20%. Second, we execute on them with really deep, intense focus. And third, we systematize everything else so we can stay at the top of our game.
All right, so pillar 1. This is all about becoming a ruthless auditor of your own time. I mean, before you can focus on those high-value tasks, you first have to figure out what in the world they are. It's all about separating the signal from the noise.
So your levers, these are the big things, like strategic planning or learning a new skill, stuff that pays off big time in the long run. And then you have the low-value stuff, the busy work. We all know what this is, constantly checking email, doing little admin tasks, or color-coding spreadsheets. Sure, it feels productive, but let's be honest, it doesn't actually move the needle on your most important goals.
So once you've figured out what your levers are, the next step is to pull them with everything you've got. And that brings us to pillar 2, executing with deep, unwavering focus. You got to start thinking of your attention as your most valuable currency, and you have to protect it fiercely.
Now, here's why that protection is so important. There's this scientific concept called attention residue. What it means is that even after you switch away from a distraction, say you check a quick email, a part of your brain is still thinking about that email. You're never fully focused on the new thing.
And the cost of that is, well, it's staggering. Research shows that every single time you switch tasks, every notification, every hey, got a quick question, it can cost you up to 20 minutes of effective focus to get fully back on track. Think about that. Do that just 3 or 4 times in a morning and poof, you've lost over an hour of your best, most productive time. So how do we fight back? With strategy. You can use stuff like time blocking, where you schedule these intense 90-minute focus sprints. You have to control your environment. Honestly, the easiest way is to just put your phone in a completely different room. Game changer. And you can even biohack your day, which just means you do your hardest work when your body's natural energy, your circadian rhythm, is at its peak. Okay, so we've identified our key tasks. We've learned how to focus on them. The final pillar is all about making this sustainable, right? It's about making this repeatable so you don't just burn out. This is where we systemize and, just as importantly, rest.
Here's a great little rule of thumb. If you find yourself doing the same repetitive task more than 3 times, just stop. Take a minute and create a system for it. Make a template, write down the steps,
This saves your precious brain power for the kind of work that actually needs your brain.
And a huge part of that system is rest, strategic rest. It's funny, we all know our phone needs to be recharged, but for some reason, we treat our own brains like they have an infinite battery. They don't. Rest isn't laziness. It's a non-negotiable part of performing at your absolute best.
Now look, I know this is a lot of information, and the point isn't to change everything about your life overnight. So let's just bring it all together into one single powerful action you can take tomorrow morning to put this all into practice.
I want you to ask yourself this question right now. Seriously, forget about your to-do list with 50 items on it. What is the one thing, the single activity that, if you just did it consistently, would make the biggest difference? What is your 20%?
Okay, got it? Here's your answer, and your very first step. It's called the first-hour rule. Before you open your email, before you check a single notification, before the world gets a chance to throw its agenda at you, you dedicate the first 60 minutes of your day to that one task. Protect that first hour fiercely.
Ultimately, making this framework stick comes down to a fundamental shift in how you measure a successful day. You have to move away from looking at a long, crossed-off to-do list and asking, how much did I do? And start asking, how much closer am I to my real goal?
Look, working harder is always a choice you can make, but it has a ceiling. Working smarter, well, that's a skill. It's a skill you can learn and develop, and its potential is basically limitless. You now have the blueprint. The choice and the skill are yours to build.